Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
My final guest this week is no stranger to Business Matters, Dragon's Den star Gavin Duffy. I have invited you onto this morning's show to discuss the Smart Marketing Seminar, which will be taking place in the Gate Theatre in Dublin on Tuesday the 17th of July. But first, how would you assess the business environment in Ireland at present?
Before I talk about the business environment and smart marketing, but not meaning to embarrass you, Karl, I know in the last fortnight, and I just want to mark it as well, congratulations on your win of a Paul Harris Fellowship Award, and it's something very special. I know Rotary very well, and I know you've been involved with it for the last few years there in the county. It's a very, very high achievement for the work that you've been doing with youth leadership down there. I really do think when we do things that are special like this within our communities as business people, it should be acknowledged. I think work like that in schools is very important to ensure that we have emerging leaders coming out of our secondary schools. So, I didn't mean that to sound like a eulogy, but look, well done. And you and I go back a long way, and I'm very, very proud of your achievement. The economy, if I could move smoothly along just to save your blushes. Look, there's a definite pickup in the economy, Karl. There isn't a business I'm meeting that isn't seeing and experiencing that. In fact, I think a lot of businesses are stretched. I've heard people saying, things are bonkers. The other side of it, though, is one of the problems in business around the country at the moment is a lot of businesses, because they've now suddenly gone into a bit of a growth spurt, or their order books are filling up, there's the emergence of cash flow problems. You're doing the business, but you have to make sure, you've structured the payments that you are getting paid for all the extra work now that's coming in.
Now, you have been a feature on Dragon's Den since it was aired first in 2009, but it was absent from our screens this year. What was the reason for this, and is it likely to return?
Well, the honest answer, Karl, is we don't know. But the problem, and, if anybody's reading the papers, is RT is really strapped for cash. So Dragon's Den only happens if there's a sponsor lined up and so on. For us, the Five Dragons currently, and it was always the case, the best time of the year for us to record is early in the year when we're a little bit freer and so on. So RTE missed that window. It's not slated at the moment. It's one of their biggest weekend programs for viewership. So I'd say it will come back. But what I always say, I genuinely don't know, because if I phoned up and asked somebody in RTE or Shin Will, the production company, it'd sound like I was keen, and that always weakens your hand on negotiations. So I always wait for the phone call. But there's nothing happening on that front at the moment. Now, they have provisionally put dates out to us for autumn recordings, but as I said, I've heard no more than that.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. Now, you were hosting a Smart Marketing Seminar in the Gate Theatre Dublin on Tuesday the 17th of July. Maybe start by telling us, what is smart marketing?
What I'm trying to explain to people is there is great value out there in various advertising channels. What I point out to people is, and I give them the hard facts in this seminar, the value that's to be had, particularly using local radio around the country, if you were building a national brand or if you're building a brand in your region. So this is a 2.5-hour seminar where I try and share the benefit of my 30 years in marketing with people and give them all the tips, the tricks, the do's and don'ts, the tried and tested of marketing, Karl. We talk about traditional media, mainstream media, but we also go in depth about social media, digital, and how you get the blend of both right.
Now, from your own experience, what percentage of business turnover should be allocated to advertising and marketing activities?
The magic figure is you should be spending at least 6%. So if you have a turnover of 100,000, your annual spend on advertising should be €6,000. Here's the bad news. Most small businesses spend about 2%, Karl, and that's why they're small. So if you want to grow, you should be spending about €6,000. But big businesses spend 8, 10 or more percent. And that's why they're big, right? So the simple fact of life is the more you market, the more customers you should get if you're marketing effectively. And I'm going to talk about how to market effectively. Now, when we say smart, in my case, smart stands for, first of all, you have to decide what's your marketing strategy. And that essentially is after you do out your marketing strategy, it helps you discover who are your target customers. And once you're clear who your target customers are, then you have to come up with what's the message that's going to hook them to become your paying customers. And then you take that message, and that message is the core of all of your advertising, right? And once you get it, and the tighter that message is, the better. So, once you get the right message, you just keep repeating it. And you've got to regularly advertise. You've got to do it regularly and keep in front of people. Repetition builds reputation. And if you want to be top of mind with your potential customers, then that's what you got to do. Here's the problem. Once you are regularly advertising, if you stay with the same message, whilst you'll have the main copy line there, you have to keep changing the context of the ad because you have to keep it topical always. So I'm going to explain how you do that.
And just on the topic of investment in marketing, it never ceases to amaze me that there is still a significant number of business owners who still believe that word-of-mouth marketing is the best route to success for them.
Yeah, and Karl, you're asking the question because this is something I make as a very strong point when I am doing the Smart Marketing Seminar. If you're somebody of my vintage and you were doing business in the 80s, word of mouth was something we were very proud of, and it used to work for us then. And retail, if I was to speak to retailers for a moment, retail's very, very tough at the moment versus where it was. When you were a great retailer back in the 80s or 90s, somebody would come into your shop looking to buy a needle, and if you gave them great service, you hoped not only would they buy a needle from you, but they might leave with an anchor as well, And what's happening now is people genuinely come into the shop with the mobile phone in their hand, and they show you a picture of something that they've searched. They've got the world's cheapest price for that product today, and they say, I want that. Do you have that? And no matter how brilliant you are at serving them, etc., they want it, and they expect it nearly at that price as well. So that thing of word of mouth, it's not like it used to be. The other thing is that word of mouth used to be that a friend of mine says, oh, you should go to such and such a restaurant. Or as soon as you do that, people go to TripAdvisor or go to some online platform to check it out. And it's the influencers on those platforms that carry more weight than their next door neighbour. Do you know what I mean? So that old thing of word of mouth doesn't exist. The new thing that I'm preaching to people is it's top of mind. Are you and your brand in front of customers, potential customers, enough that, let's say you're a shoe shop in County Wexford, if somebody says, I'm thinking of buying a pair of shoes, would those potential customers name your shop in their one or two top three? And if they don't, Karl, I think that's very bad news. And I'd say your business is in decline and possibly terminal decline. You have to be top of mind. Therefore, I would argue you have to be marketing and advertising.
So with many businesses now diverting some of their marketing budget into social media channels, I know that during your Smart Marketing Seminar, you'll be speaking about the importance of the blend between digital and traditional mediums being used. But social media channels have become very effective in deflecting advertisers' attention onto a metric called impressions, which is really a useless metric, isn't it?
Well, look, that's very interesting, Karl, because they're not a true reflection of the actual numbers of people reading your particular advertisement, right? And in the whole area of online media, being told that you'd X number of impressions, because look, we all know, be it Facebook or Twitter or whatever, you're scrolling there, and you probably scroll past 20 with, you don't necessarily take them in. Impressions is not to be read. The metrics here are not the type of metrics I'd be asking people to pay too much attention to. It's done by these big social media platforms to promote themselves, and they're very good at that. That's why they've become such global players. But the numbers, as far as I'm concerned, don't stack up.
And Gavin, what factors need to be considered when a business is deciding on where it should advertise?
Well, you see, it depends where your customer base is. And, and Karl, just because I'm with you on Southeast Radio, look, hand up here. I'm a former radio person. I ran radio sales teams. So, look, I know radio very, very well. So, I stand up to be counted. And if people say I have a soft spot for local radio, yes, probably I have. If you're in an area and you've got a strong local radio station in the area that has good ratings, JNLR ratings, if you've got a business that's in that area and so on, I would say to people, please don't overlook those channels. Radio is very, very powerful, but again, only if you're using it regularly. And the big thing with me is, for a local business, I would be saying, if you're using the local radio, you have to have a jingle, you have to have an ad. The moment somebody hears it, they know, oh, that's you, that's the product, that's what they offer, and it's a subliminal, repetitive type of messaging that keeps your business top of mind.
Now, one of the most confusing areas in advertising for any business owner is deciding what information needs to go into my advert.
The three key essentials in all advertising copy are the three Bs. You have to have your brand, you have to have your boast, and you have to have your bait. And those three have to be in every ad. And if they're not in every ad, your ad is not effective. Now, what do I mean by brand, boast, and bait? Well, you have to have your brand in every ad. And if that's radio, that's a very good jingle. That sort of, has the name of the business in the jingle. If it's a newsprint, will you please get some good graphic designer to really have a sharp logo that looks well in advertising, and you keep using that repeatedly. The boast is then what you're best at, and this is something in the seminars I talk to people about. What is that core message? When you get the right one, they're brilliant, and that's why they last forever. And then it's not just advertising and just putting the brand out there. You always have to have an offer or something that to get people to come in this week, to come in tomorrow, to come in this weekend, and that's what I mean by your bait. You have to have something special on offer, this weekend. The funny thing is, it has to be nearly in that order as well.
You've often advised businesses against engaging in circus advertising. What is circus advertising, and why do you feel so strongly about it?
Yeah. Well, look, we all know what happens when the circus comes to town. Now, by the way, it works brilliantly for the circus. They come to town and they put posters up everywhere and they say, the circus is on, in the fair green on the following dates, right? Yeah, they do a big splurge of advertising and so on. And it's called circus advertising because it works for circuses, right? But your business is not a circus. You're there all year round and you have to sell all the time. Your customers have to keep coming to you all the time, 12 months of the year. And what a lot of businesses do is, particularly in retail, they have a situation where they want to buy new stock, but they're left with some of the old stock. So they advertise a couple of times a year, and they usually do an ad for a sale. And so the boutique owner wants to move on winter stock, so they'll put an ad on the radio saying, Sheila's Boutique, prices down 30%, everything must clear, etc. What you're telling your customers is, please don't shop with us regularly. Wait until I'm giving it away for half nothing and then come into me. And if you're doing that once or twice a year, I genuinely think you're damaging your business. And that's why I feel, you've heard me, I feel very strongly about this. I would prefer you to advertise regularly. It's not big splash stuff. I'm looking for consistency, regular advertising, and you just keep it there all the time. So people, when they think I want to get that dress or that outfit for a special occasion, they're going to you.
As you know, many businesses right across rural Ireland are often subjected to what can be known as blackmail or arm twist advertising.
Yeah, well, you see, what happens is this. In the seminar, I sort of come up with a budget of 4,000. I say, look, if you're going to spend 4,000 a year, this is how I'd spend it. So, like, you know, I'm not going with wild figures. You know, I'm going with what I think is a very reasonable spend. Now, you'd still have people saying, "Oh God, I don't know, we wouldn't have that much, etc." And when I ask them, how much have they spent on what I call blackmail advertising? And I know when you're part of the community, you have to support the community, right? But how often does it happen that somebody comes into your business and says, listen, the under-14 club players in the hurling, they've got to the county semi-final and we've a home game. Would you put an ad in the programme for €75? And you know in your heart of hearts there's going to be 23 parents and 7 dogs maximum at that hurling match, and it is a complete waste. Now, you know, like, I'm not saying there are exceptions to the rule. Sometimes somebody in the club actually comes in and does a bit of business with you, right? But you know, it's not a way to do it. What I'm saying to business people, if you were to nominate a local community charity and say, no, our charity is X, and you sort of give as generously as you wish to do to that every year. But then all of the other stuff, you know, and it's difficult. You say a polite no, and you take that money and plan it, because, you know, I have these a thing called the Magnificent Seven formulas, how to sort of spend your money, be it on radio, be it on social media, be it on newspapers, how to spend it in a planned way, in a proactive way, right? I'm telling you, you will get a return on it. Whereas the other stuff you're doing, it's nice community stuff, but it does not come back to you in your till, or does not come back to you in your balance sheet, and I question it. So take that money, use the plans that I'll set out for you, and you'll do much better. But also as well, in the outline I give of, you know, if you're planning to spend €4,000, and let's say you do a deal there with Southeast Radio, if you're a pharmacist, we'll say a pharmacy, right? You know, you're spending whatever you are with Southeast Radio sort of annually, and then you actually say to your suppliers, well, look, we've these ads on, and they will actually pay for some of that advertising. So you've bought it already, but you're able to get it paid for by your suppliers. And so that 4,000, I believe, can actually end up only costing you 2,000 if you're planning it. But what a lot of people are doing, they're doing reactive stuff, and it doesn't work, and it certainly doesn't deliver.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.